My name is Artika, and I am a volunteer facilitator for NKA, which stands for New Knowledge Adventures. Before I introduce our speaker, I want to just cover a few important points. In a nutshell, NKA has been around for about 16 years. It was started uh, in Pocatello by a group of very active volunteers in collaboration with Idaho State University. And they were looking for to establish a program that had certain components. One was affordable access, volunteer governance, volunteer instructors, and active engagement by the community so that they could provide very diverse learning opportunities, lifelong learning opportunities, and also have fun. Then in 2014, NKA made its debut in the Treasure Valley, and this was made possible by a partnership with AARP, Idaho State University, and the Treasure Valley YMCA. So we have been active for 7 years, and today AARP is our enduring partner. And without the support of AARP, we could not have this wonderful program. We are a volunteer-driven program, and everyone, instructors, facilitators, committees, are all volunteers, and we are very grateful for their dedication. Their dedication is such that even a pandemic didn't keep us from moving forward. This is our second semester where we have provided virtual classes. And fall, I believe, is also going to be virtual. And there's the potential in the future when we are able to safely provide in-person classes that we will also have a virtual hybrid component where people can attend in person and some can tune in remotely, thereby giving access to many, many more people. So we are just a wonderful program. One of the things I want to say, so I don't forget to say it later, is that if you are interested in volunteering or if you have ideas for future classes, our host today is Kathy McDougall, who is our fearless leader. And she is going to put her contact information in the chat box so you can contact her to discuss some possible opportunities. All of our classes are videotaped. You can access any of our past classes by going to YouTube and searching for NKA Idaho, and they're all going to pop up and you'll have an opportunity to see them, and so can anybody else. A little bit of housekeeping. We certainly hope you will stay till the end of the presentation, but participants can leave the class at any time if they need to do so. And just remember that you can also go back and watch what you missed on YouTube. Microphones will be muted so that we eliminate any background noise or interruptions. If you have questions, please type them into the chat box, and that icon should be at the bottom of your screen normally. And then our presenter will answer the questions at the end of the presentation. And last but not least, we request professional behavior, language, and attire at all times, and we know that's not usually a problem. So now it is my pleasure to introduce Sandy Perkey, our presenter today. Sandy is a fifth-year advanced master gardener with the University of Idaho Extension Office. Sandy is an experienced presenter. She's taught many classes to children, to seniors, and to anyone who's interested in growing plants in the Treasure Valley. So without further ado, Sandy Perkey.
Hi, folks. I'm going to go ahead and close the box here so I can see myself. And I wanted to start this class by saying I'm so glad that so many people are actually involved with gardening now and seeing that there's there's a ton of interest in it, shall we say. In the past years, as Lisa said, I've been a master gardener for quite a while now, and we've never seen the uptick of gardening we have this year. It's just been, I should say, overwhelming, but also incredibly meaningful to us, because it means people are truly understanding where their food comes from, and they're paying attention to it, and they're really looking at it and saying, look, I can grow this myself. And that's where my joy comes from. Is I love teaching little ones about how to grow things, and anyone else who is looking to grow things. So that's what I'm about. And I'm going to actually, Lisa, it looks like I'm not being viewed. Is that correct? No? Can you see me? Yes? Okay, great. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to actually push my screen down so you see less of me, but more of what we're working with today. So we've got a handout that was sent to you before the class, and we're going to talk about what we're going to do as far as putting together an herb garden. First thing you need is a pot with drainage. I've chosen these nice little stackable pots that I have. You can see tons of drainage holes in them, and they're great because they actually drain very, very well, but also they stack really well, which is one of my favorite things about them, is that I can get lots of different plants in here. And that is very helpful with herbs, because when you're doing herbs, you want to look at herbs that require more water and some that require less water. And it's very important to distinguish those and break them out accordingly. We're going to be talking about potting soil. I have a nice potting soil right here that I've also added compost to and worm castings to. So that's what I use as far as putting in my plants. These are my little seedlings that some of them I've grown, some of them I was on vacation and they kind of died, so I had to go supplement. But I try to make sure that I have organic matter in the potting soil, because it needs it to live. It has to live, so it has to have food. You're going to need a trowel to dig things out or in, your plants, of course, and watering cans. Now, I like these watering cans. They're really small, but look at how long and lean this is. When you're going to be watering little tiny plants like these little guys, like these cilantro, say, you need something that can get right into the plant. So I find that the big watering cans, which are great when they're all the big size, when they're well established and everything's going well, those are terrific. But when they're really small, like the ones we're going to be working with, we need to be able to get the water to them quickly. So I use that. Now, if we want to talk about what kind of plants you want to grow, if you're looking for a drought tolerant plant, you want something like a rosemary. And when I talk about drought tolerant, I mean that their stem, I hope you can see that really well, is very, very strong. It's thick and it's very, very strong. So that is more drought tolerant because it's not going to need the water. It takes the water up in this stem and holds on to it for a while, versus something like this lovely tarragon, which has very, very fine leaves, and it doesn't hold the water as well. So it will require a lot more water. So when I'm putting this together, I will have the drought tolerant plants on the top of my planter, and I will have the plants that require more water on the bottom, because as the water flows down, of course, it will sit more with the fine plants, as we call them. When you're doing these drought tolerant gardens, the selection of plants that I've chosen is thyme and oregano and lavender and some sage. So they have the sturdy tops. Now, when you're doing the herb garden for things that are more delicate, such as my very favorite thing in the world, basil. This is a Genovese basil, which I use constantly throughout the year. Um, I use it in salads. I, of course, make pesto with it, and I love it on grilled cheese sandwiches, which I know sounds a little weird, but try it. You'll love it. It's fantastic. Also with marjoram. Marjoram is also very fine. I mean, look at how tender these are. Very, very fine. So we're going to put these in a separate area of the plant. Now, let's talk about the pot that you're going to be using. As I said, the pot I'm using has 3 sections to it. 1, 2, 3. So if I want to do more than 3 sections for a pot, I would add another one of these. However, if I'm doing a large pot, like, you know, a standard pot, you can put them, of course, in the same sections, but I would really encourage you to separate the pots based on whether it's drought hardy or whether it's a tender plant, because your watering is going to matter so much. It really is, looking at how much there's going to be in it. Also, you have to think about how much your plant is going to grow. I mean, look at this rosemary plant. It's grown quite a bit, and it's very bushy. So you have to kind of look at that. You look at this tarragon. It also is one plant, but look how big it is. This is what I call a spiller, because it's going to spill over the top as it grows, which is lovely. And my oregano is doing the same. And you'll see one of my interesting concepts this year. I planted oregano. Look, I got a tomato plant. I have no idea what kind of tomato plant it is, but I'll find out in about, 60 days. Hopefully it's an early girl so that I can have some tomatoes. But it's really interesting to find out how much room you need. This lavender plant is tiny right now, but we all know lavender plants really can grow. So that depends on the placement in your pot too. If you have a large pot, say the size of this bucket, width-wise, not depth, but width-wise, you can place them accordingly so that you give them enough room to grow. Now, if you've got something smaller, you may have to replant those. And, it's of course very doable. Herbs are pretty forgiving. They're not like carrots. Once carrots are planted, you can't move them around. But with a herb, you can move them around. Although once they're established, I like to leave them where they are because they're happy. And happy herbs make me happy. So I like to keep them going that way. Now, on your plant selection, I gave you just a nominal list of the top herbs that people use, I believe. And I think if you want to do other ones, look at the stems of your plants. Look at these stems, and this will tell you how you can use it. Also, pay attention to the planting instructions if they have it on the package. Make sure that it says, it requires sun, it requires part shade, all those things. You want to pay attention to those and plant like plants together. The last thing you want to do is put something that requires full sun in with a pot of herbs that require partial shade. So you really want to be careful on how you're doing that. Let's see what else we can talk about here. We want to talk about finishing up, watering, fertilizing, and I think we'll do that after we've planted some plants. So what I have here is my information is, my potting soil, and I actually saved the bag so you can see. This is the bag of stuff I use. It is Whitney Farms organic planting soil. Got it at Costco, of course, on sale, which was great. I like this because it's got organic material in it already. Very important to have something with some food that's already there to start the plants. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my handy dandy tray here. I'm going to add in some soil and compost. And we're going to talk about how to actually water this in. I don't know how many of you are avid gardeners and what you know, what you don't know. So I'm going to go with the basics here. I put in enough water in the soil and mix it up to make it feel like a damp sponge. And thinking about a damp sponge is you just want to make sure that it's not super wet, because you don't want to drown these tender roots that you're putting in place. You just want it to be just as a damp sponge. Okay, it holds together, but then it falls apart. It's just like having a sponge that you've wrung out. And I think we're going to go with my more tender plants first. So we'll take this little guy here. We're going to, if I was really a good gardener, I'd be using my trowel here, but I am what you call a hands-on gardener. My husband always teases me by saying, you have all these gloves, you never use them. I say, I know, because I love to get my hands in it. It makes me very happy to know what is going into the soil and how I can manipulate the plants accordingly. See, I put more towards the front. That's where the plants are going to go. So let's put some plants in. I think the first one we'll go with here is a cilantro. This is I'm going to empty it this way over the bucket of soil. I'm going to keep my little plant tag, stick it in here, just in case I didn't remember what it was I was planting. But what I'm going to do is just tease this soil. I call it tickling. I'm going to tickle the plant roots until I can see them from the soil. And I'm going to move them just so that they're not bound up. I want them to be free and feel like they can go someplace. Oh, there's a little volunteer there. Okay, so I have lots of plant roots here. You can see them, lots of them. I'm going to go ahead and place them in this soil and then put a little more soil over the top just to cover it so that the crown of the plant, this is considered the crown of the plant here, is covered, because I don't want that being up and showing anything at all. I want it to be covered. So that's done. Let's put this little guy in here so he's got a chance to grow and give me some salsa. Okay, now also cilantro going to grow like this. It's going to grow like a weed, going to grow like that. Now next to the cilantro, I'm going to put in my beloved basil. Because to tell you the truth, I have been waiting and waiting and waiting to play with my basil. I love my basil. So I'm going to take it out of the pot carefully. And it seems like it just wants to stay in there. So I'm going to give it a little help with, where's my dibbler? Here it is. Okay, actually I'm using an ice pick.
Hey, Sandy, there's a request to move your camera a little bit so we could see just a little bit better the soil.
How's that? That better?
That looks good. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to take my beloved basil out. And it is coming out. There we go. You can see all these roots here. We've got tons and tons of roots for this lovely, lovely basil. So I'm going to take it out, move it around a little bit, tickle the roots. And then I'm going to put it right here into this spot and cover it with more soil, of course. Now, basil also is going to grow up and out. this will probably have to be transplanted because this Genovese basil really grows fast. If you were growing something like a Thai basil, you probably wouldn't have to worry about it. Also, there is a cinnamon basil and a pineapple basil. I will tell you, they are magnificent on fish. Oh, so beautiful. Oh, and an orange basil. I just tried that last year on halibut. It was amazing. So there's my basil. Next thing I'm going to put in is my tarragon. So look at how root bound this guy is. He is crazy. Look at that. Came from, you know, like I think I got it at Lowe's or someplace like that. But look how much root there is. Let me move that a little bit so you can see the roots on this thing. It is crazy. Look at this. And that has to be unwound so that these roots can grow. So as again, I'm going to give it a little tickle here. And now these roots are going to lay long. So I'm actually going to have to put them in a long way in the pot. So let me show you how I'm going to do that, because I don't want them all twisted up like that. I'm going to put them in like this. So you see I have some of them over here. I have some of the roots over here, but I need to bury it in a little bit. I'm going to put more soil over the top so my roots do not get sun scald. It's one of the hardest things is with these little plants, with these little seedlings you buy. You really want to make sure you don't get sun scald anywhere. And that is really paramount importance. You really want to make sure that they're good. Now, another thing I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to add a little of fertilizer. This fertilizer is called BioLife, and it's a 542 fertilizer. I use it on everything that I transplant or plant. So I'm just going to use just a tiny bit. That's maybe a teaspoon and a half. Just going to spread it around, but not on the root or the root ball. And that's just to give it a good start. This product can be found at North End Organic Farms. You can find it at Zamzow's. I saw it at Zamzow's the other day. You don't have to buy it in a huge box like this at Zamzow's. They have little boxes, which is very nice. If you're just doing, you know, a few herbs for the year, if you're not planting a huge garden, go ahead and get the little box. It's really fine. Now we're going to water this guy in. And you're saying, hey, why is she watering over her plant mix? Well, you're right. I should move this. Let's move it over here so you can see it better anyway. So now I have tarragon, and I have cilantro, and I have basil. And these are all very, very tender plants. So they require a lot of water. So now I'm going to move this guy, put him in my sink right now for draining. Excuse me. And then I'm going to move on to the more hardy plants, the drought tolerant plants. I'm going to put them in another one of these buckets because then I can stack them on top of each other. So again, with the mix. And again, remember when you're planting, if you're taking time out between planting, be sure to check the soil humidity level as far as, you know, is it still like a damp sponge when you're working on it, or has it dried out a little bit? If it's dried out, please give it some more water because it needs to be able to breathe and work properly. Put these over here. Okay, more soil. And again, we'll go with the sponge test. Do we have any questions in the queue at all, Kathy? Or Lisa?
Yes, we do. Some of the questions have been answered. People were interested in knowing where you got the pots, and Sandy did some research and says that you can get them on Amazon or Home Depot. Gypsy has a question about reusing pots from
Okay.
last year, and what is the best way to clean them and sterilize them in preparation for use again?
Perfect. Okay, very good question, Gypsy. Very, very good question. And for all of you who want to reuse pots, because you'll see I'm reusing these pots. I reuse them every year. Make sure that you wash them very, very carefully. I wash mine in a solution of 110. So one part bleach, 10 parts water. And I soak mine. I have a nice little sink in my room here. And I soak mine usually overnight because I want to make sure that it gets all the properties of the bleach. But I also give it a nice scrubbing at the end of the year. So I have a little process where I take the plants out, I dry out the container because it's so much easier to brush out that soil and leaves and any other detritus that's in there when it's dry. So I let that happen. I brush them out and then I stack them in the sink in the 10-1 solution. And I leave them there overnight, take them out, and then I wash them with like dishwashing soap, like Dawn. And then I let them dry. Once they're dried completely, I put them away for the season. And I use that quite often because pots are expensive. I mean, you get them at garage sales and whatever, and it's a great deal, but make sure you scrub them out really, really well because you don't know what they used. You have no idea if they were using, some strange fertilization solution, whatever, and the bleach will kill all that. So it really helps. But I did want to tell people about these pots that I have here. One place you can get them, and I just saw them. It was last week. Yeah. They have brand new ones for $16.99 at the Idaho Youth Ranch. And I thought that was a great bargain for these because I think I got 3 of them with a chain for, I think it was $25.99. So $16.99 sounds a lot better to me. So there are a ton of them. They're up front by the registers, and they have some really good deals there for gardening right now. And this is one of the ones that I use. In fact, when I discovered these, everybody I know got one for holiday gifts or Mother's Day or whatever. In fact, I think all the mothers in the family got these. And then, of course, teaching them how to pot things up and that sort of thing. So, and they're really hardy. I mean, I've had this probably 10 years. And you can see it's still very good. It doesn't crack. It doesn't, fall apart. So I recommend these for this kind of gardening. Now, another thing you can do with these pots, I didn't really want to go into pots so much, but if you get these and you put in geraniums and fuchsias and impatiens and all kinds of things, you have the most glorious color display in your yard. It is astonishing. It's just beautiful. So I recommend these pots. However, you can always use a regular pot for an herb garden. So let's go with the hard ones. The hard ones being rosemary. Let's see if I can tilt this up a little bit. There we go. Take out our rosemary plant. And oh, look how dry this baby got. I just watered it last night. Oof. Must have a lot of vermiculite in the soil, and it does, which is good because when you're transplanting seedlings, you need to have a lot of moisture retaining properties in there. Okay, so we'll just tease this out a little bit. See, I'm just kind of getting to the roots here. Now I've got a nice little crown. I'm going to go ahead and place it in the pot. And then I'm going to take more soil and put it over the top. Did I hear a question?
Yes, Guy had a question about trimming the roots when you are potting like you are right now.
Right, right. You know, Guy, I don't trim the roots when I first pot. And excuse me, let me back that up. When I'm pulling it out and I'm tickling the roots, if I see roots that do not look like they're healthy, I will trim those roots. However, these roots looked very healthy. But like I said, I will trim the bad ones if I need to. I don't trim them just to fit the pot. I think it's gone to all that trouble to grow those roots, so I want it to have the opportunity to use them and soak up the water and the nutrients I'm going to be giving it. So I don't trim roots, and it's that way for me for trying to think here. It's every plant, flower, vegetable, herb, fruit, like raspberries, strawberries, that kind of thing. I don't trim the roots unless they look like they're dead. If they look like they're dead, then I will, definitely. Okay, let's take this. Oops. Pots are getting a little light here. All right, let's take this lovely oregano, which I did start from a scrap from my garden. Can you all see it here? Move the screen a little. Okay. 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 And you'll see that they love it. They also love growing next. Oh, that works very well for me. Tacked because it's going to go into a pot in my garden so I can see what kind of plant I have here. Oh, it's kind of pulled together. Okay, they're trying to be twinsies. So look, I have to pull apart those roots. Oof. Okay, but now I have some nice rootage on here on my oregano. Nice, nice, nice long roots. Beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in the pot. Dig a nice little hole, put them in there. Take some of this soil and put it around. And I'm going to tamp it down a bit. Now with oregano, it's got a very hardy stem, but I like to put that down to the point where the herb is growing. So I've covered the first layer. You can see I've done it with both of those. And now I'm going to go with my sweet little lavender, I think, this little guy. I also did a cutting from one of my plants up front. Lavender is one of the best things you can grow, by the way, because it is so good for bringing in pollinators. And our pollinator community is dying very, very quickly. Without pollination, we have no food. So we want to keep our pollinators happy. Therefore, I always try to plant things that create pollination activity. Lavender is one of my favorites. It's crazy because I found out in France at a lavender farm that I'm kind of allergic to it, but I love it and the pollinators love it. So I keep going with it. Now there's my drought tolerant plants. I'm going to move this out of the way. Get my other plant. So these are my plants that require more water. And I'm going to just set this on top. Here we go. And that is my herb garden right now. If I wanted to do another plant in here, you know, I try not to crowd them. So I probably would not do another one here. Also, this is a drainage hole right here. So I don't want to stop that because these plants down here require so much more drainage. So I like to leave them getting all the drainage they want. I will put this in a large saucer so that anything that drains out actually will be held at the bottom for the plants, which they will take up as needed during the season. So I have it on an automatic sprinkler, and that's how it's done. Let me see, I got to get my bio food in here real quick.
And we have a few more questions.
Absolutely.
So Gypsy said that she put her garlic in her tomato pots last fall and they're doing great. But then she read that they should not have water in September, which would not be good for the tomatoes. So can she move her garlic to another pot?
Oh, once garlic is established, it likes to stay right where it is. Unfortunately, it's a bulb. So you can, let me pull this back up here. You can technically move it, Gypsy. I would say move it sooner versus later. I keep my onions and my garlic separate because of that watering issue. Just so you know.
Another question from Steve and Gloria. They want to know if you can hand water. Do you have to hand water or can they use a fogger sprayer?
A fogger sprayer. The only fogger sprayer I know of is to kill bugs. I don't hand water at all. I use just timers. We have individual timers in all of our pots, and they get their water every day at a certain time. So I don't see a problem with using a fogger at all if it is what I think it is, which is just delivering a fine spray of water. It should be just fine. It's just making sure that they get water. So that was another thing that I forgot to show you guys is make sure you give it a little mist on the top when you first do it. Even though you've given it a little water, stick a little mist on top of it just to see, you know, make sure that it knows it's loved and welcomed and going to be happy here.
And a question from Sandy about the oregano. She wants to know if there's a danger of the oregano taking over the whole pot because it can be invasive.
Oh, you know, Sandy, before I was a gardener and learned something about gardening, I stupidly put oregano in my planting bed and it took over everything and started coming up in my lawn. So you're right, oregano can go nuts. Now, when it's in this pot, it's going to spill this way. And if I see any shoots coming up around the oregano, I'm going to pull them out because oregano is like mint. Don't ever put it in anything but a pot that can contain it. So another thing I was going to say, if you're moving these plants, say they get too big for these containers, you want to move them somewhere. With the oregano and probably the lavender, they're prolific, shall we say. They will take over your yard. They will do very, very well to the detriment of all your other plants because they will take all the nutrients from the other plants as they get large. Now in this environment, you can see they're spaced out pretty far apart. Let me see if I can tip this a little bit. They're spaced out pretty far apart, so they're not going to get too bad. But you want to make sure that you look to see if there are any little ones coming up. Just pull those out. Just pull them out. And your oregano is just going to grow. And this also is going to be a spiller. It's going to spill down the side. And like I said, the tarragon is going to grow up and then it's going to spill over. So I usually have these sitting in a plant stand. They sit in a saucer and then in a plant stand so that I get that lovely spillover effect. And I keep it really close to my back door so that I can get to it from the kitchen because there's nothing like it. Somebody mentioned in one of the other AARP classes that they use branches from their rosemary and keep it in their kitchen just for the smell of it. I got to tell you, you can do that with every herb. Just leave it in the kitchen and use it. You also can dehydrate these herbs at the end of the season and use them. One thing I wanted to tell you about was an herb is the actual leaf. A spice is either the stem or the stalk or the dried fruit. Because if you come over here and look at this cilantro is right here. There he is, winking at you. He's going to grow these little white berries, and they're going to dry. And that is what we use as coriander. So it's a twofer, really. It gives you what you need to use in salsa and in other dishes going forward, because you have this lovely little berry. Also, cilantro will bloom twice a year. So when you go to use your cilantro, just cut a bit off. Don't take out the whole root, because it will grow again. It is, in fact, it is super, super prolific in September when your tomatoes are ready. So it's perfectly ready for your onions that are coming up, your garlic that's coming up, your tomatoes. It's just yelling for salsa. So it's perfect then. And these plants are not winter hardy, just so you know. Even the ones on the top, it depends on what you get. But when you get a winter hardy plant, look for something that's got a very, very thick stem on it, because I lost my beloved Russian rosemary last year. And I thought, geez, we didn't even have a tough winter, but boy, oh boy, I lost my rosemary, and I was devastated because I use it all the time. In fact, I don't know how many of you went to Kathy McDougall's class on the sourdough. I was going to ask Kathy if she ever put herbs into her bread. Kathy, are you there?
Yeah, hey Sandy. You know, I have done a little bit of it, but it's not usually top of mind.
Okay.
But I like to mix them in butters.
Yes.
And spread them
Yes.
on top or grill it.
Oh yes, it's wonderful. Like I said, give basil a shot on your grilled cheese. It is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Also, you can fry basil and crumple it on top of pastas and things. I do that with my sage quite a bit. I'm very, very happy with my sage. I love the plant. Some people think sage is just for Thanksgiving, just for turkey. It is not. It can be used on everything. It's so delicious on squash. It really is. It adds this beautiful flavor to squash, even if you're just cooking it on the stovetop, or if you're grilling it, just put a little sage on there and see what happens with it. With the tarragon, put that in a little olive oil, and you've got a tarragon oil that is wonderful. It is so good. So,
Sandy, I just wanted to comment, tying back to your comment about winter hardy plants.
mhm.
I know I had to learn the hard way in research. I have a huge lavender garden in the front of my house, and when it's in bloom, it really is a showstopper.
Mhm.
But there are certain varieties, and most nurseries will work with you on it, like Hidcote, is winter hardy. And some of the rosemary is hardier. I think like ARP might be winter hardy, although you do have to protect it.
Right.
But my question is, so if I start a little herb pot with my rosemary in it, at the end of the season, can I then transplant it into the ground and
Yes.
in the fall?
Yes. As long as it is winter hardy. Yes. Yes. In fact, I will be probably transplanting quite a few of these. Or what I'll also do is take cuttings. I'll take a cutting from the plant and start the cutting over and put that in a bigger pot, because I know I'm going to want more rosemary for sure. I know I'm going to want more cilantro. So I will take cuttings and start those and grow more plants. And I may put those all in their own pot. I may put them in another herb pot. it really depends on what I'm planning to do. I wasn't planning to do any gardening this year because we're planning so many trips, so many vacations this year. But you know, as any gardener will tell you, it's an addiction. You cannot stop it. If there are plants, you must plant. So
Couple
I
more.
have plants.
When
What was
you're,
that?
when you're ready, we have just a couple more questions.
Perfect.
The Siegmiller family wants to know if herbs can be grown by the kitchen window with indirect sunlight. This is
Yes. Yes, 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 Siegmiller family. In fact, I believe most gardeners do grow their herbs indoors and keep them in either a kitchen window or someplace that does have access to sunlight. I have a patio room that's enclosed, and that's where I grow a lot of my herbs because they're sheltered, because they are very tender. You know, I mean, you're talking about cilantro and marjoram. They're very, very tender. So you want to keep them away from the elements. But on nice warm days where there's no prospect of heavy wind, which we have for this afternoon, I will put them outside and let them you know, enjoy the sunshine and have a great time. But when it's very windy, if it's cold, absolutely I bring them in because they don't like to be cold. The exception I would say is this darn oregano, which will grow very, very well in adverse conditions. And, you know, as Lisa said, it really depends on the type you get. So when you are over at, say, Edwards or North End Organic or 5 Mile Nursery, be sure to ask them for the ones that are winter hardy. And then you can see what you've got. It also allows you to have an opportunity to have fresh herbs all year when you can grow these on the windowsill. So, you know, I keep trying to grow tomatoes all year in my little garden room here, but, you know, I don't want the pollinators in here. So that part's kind of hard. I've done hand done pollination, but it's kind of tricky. So I'm not very good at that. But growing herbs indoors is definitely doable. You can get a little grow light if you want to on, you know, dreary winters. It would be great. So
go for
yeah,
it.
very, very easy.
A few more comments and questions.
Yes.
Kat says that sage leaves fried in real butter and placed on bread is divine.
Oh, you are so right, Kat. I love fried sage leaves. I put them on, they have an excellent butternut squash at Costco in the fall. And I do sage fried in butter, and then I drizzle the whole thing on those butternut squash raviolis, and they are to die for. They're so good. So good. Yeah, it's wonderful.
And Gypsy commented that she puts her rosemary in her south-facing kitchen window. She put it there this winter, and it's very happy. And
Ooh,
it's
good.
on outside for the summer.
Okay, great.
And Steve and Gloria have a question about how low on the stem should they cut the plant to get a cutting? Does the bottom of the cutting need to be treated before it's put in the soil?
I always treat mine. Let me show you what I use. Pull these away just a little bit here. I was showing everybody earlier about, well, not everybody, I was showing people about the room my husband put together for me. So I'm going to give you a quick little tour of my room. This used to be a jacuzzi room, and then the jacuzzi died. So now I have a room for my plants. And I have a wonderful planting station with a sink, a nice stainless steel table, lots of storage, lots. So I'm absolutely thrilled. This is my equivalent of the garage. So what I use when I'm rooting things is this wonderful thing. It's called rooting powder. Now I bought this bottle probably 4 years ago, maybe, because really you literally pour a little of the rooting powder into the cap, just a little, dip your stem in it, and then put your stem right into the soil. But I always, always use rooting powder anytime I'm transferring a stem or a cutting that I'm doing, because I want to make sure that it's got all the information and all the nutrition that it needs to really move ahead. Another thing I will do when I'm doing things outside, I don't do this one inside at all. This is called Organics Fish and Seaweed Fertilizer. It smells to high heaven. Oh my gosh, it's so stinky, but it really works, especially if you've got a plant that's struggling. Another thing you can use if you've got a plant that's struggling, if you've got a tomato plant or virtually any plant that you just are not seeing it growing, it doesn't seem healthy. It's there, but it's not really happy. Go ahead and mix together a solution of 3 to 1 Epsom salts and water. And go ahead and pour that right on the root area for the plant. Epsom salts bring in the nutrients that are needed for these plants to move forward. And I have taken plants that look like they were at death's door. In fact, I think one of my favorite things to do is to go to Lowe's dollar rack on the back where they've, left these plants to die. And I bring them home and I put them back in the garden. I routinely do this with anything that's a bulb. I mean, when you can get 6 or 8 bulbs of tulips for $1, go for it. just make sure that they get some good nutrients in the beginning and they'll be fine. But first, fish fertilizer is great for that. Like I said, do not mix this in the house because it is probably the most vile thing you'll ever smell. It's really, really bad. And if,
yes. Questions. Kat D wants to know if you add BioLife fertilizer at certain times during the summer growing time.
Yes, I do. I love BioLife. I really do. It's I used it when I planted my potatoes this year. I use it for everything. What I usually do for a larger plant, like some of my I'll show you real quick here. I've got a really nice sized tomato plant right now. When I actually put together the planting area for my tomato, I will go ahead and add the BioLife around and a little bit inside the planting hole. Then I will put the plant in, then I will put more soil on top and a little bit more soil around it. And then I'll probably rake it around a little bit just to make sure that the BioLife gets down to where the roots will be trying to find food.
And Jackie wants to know how she can grow parsley. Is it similar to how you would grow cilantro?
It is very, very similar. And Jackie, if you've ever grown parsley, there are 2 different types. There's a curly one, which everybody finds on their salad plate or next to a sandwich or whatever. And the curly one is a little bitter, just so you know, unless you get it like in the really, really early stages, the curly parsley is a little bit bitter. So I don't use that so much as I use the flat leaf Italian parsley, and it is super easy to grow, just like cilantro, just like anything else. In fact, I had some here, I just didn't put it in. So I had some parsley that I grew myself, and it's really easy to take cuttings. Just take a cutting from somebody's plant. It's one thing about gardeners, we love to share. We love to share. So if you have friends who have, say you go over to a friend's house, or you go to a plant sale that Lisa is having this weekend, by the way, and I'm hoping she'll mention it. You can actually go and see these lovely plants that are ready, but also you're going to make friends with gardeners who will give you cuttings, which is great. Yeah, so I mean, plant sales, we had a really big one last week for the Master Gardener office, and it was fabulous. We had over 250 people there. It was great. So all that benefits scholarships for people who would like to join the Master Gardener program. And it's a wonderful opportunity to find plants that you've never heard of before. You don't know how they work. You're not sure what to do. Go talk to these gardeners and find out, do you actually have the environment at home to sustain this plant? And is it something you want to try? Because I like to try something new every year. And like I freely admit with my very dirty hands here, I cannot grow an asparagus bean apparently, because I've been trying for 3 years. So my asparagus beans just will not grow. My asparagus grows, my beans grow, but not an asparagus bean. So I encourage you to try something new every single year. Just pick up a plant that you really haven't tried before, something you want to give it a shot, try. If you want cauliflower, try that. Although it's pretty late to do cauliflower at this point. Cauliflower is a fall plant. So there are certain plants you do in the fall.
Sandy, as much as I would love to promote my garden club's plant sale, we're really not allowed to do.
Oh, that's
but
too bad.
I did say that folks can look in the paper, because this is the most popular weekend coming up for all of the local garden clubs, which would be Golden Garden Club, Napa Garden Club, even the Botanical Garden has a plant sale. Everyone is having a plant sale, and you can generally find information about it through the local paper, or look for signs posted. And the advantage to buying plants from the local garden clubs throughout the Treasure Valley is that they are hardened for Idaho weather. They are usually perennials that have been divided, and they are many of them grown by local members. So a great place and good prices, and always they're fundraisers. So many of the garden clubs do provide scholarships and community. They maintain community parks and various other things. So it's a great way to support the local community. And we have one additional question, or a couple actually, that I want. Gypsy wants to know the formula for the Epsom salt. Is it 1 part Epsom and 3 parts water?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. And Jim had asked about parsley being winter hardy. I would normally say no. I'll tell you, Jim, I'm stunned as anyone that I went out yesterday when I got back from my camping trip and found that my parsley has come back to life from last year. I didn't think it would. I didn't dig it out, but I figured it would just die and I would have to replant, but it's back. It's, in fact, both curly and flat leaf are back. My poor rosemary died, but my parsley is doing great. But I did want to give you some quick information also about the Master Gardener program through the University of Idaho. We do have a website, and it's over at University of Idaho Extension Office, which is right by Hawk Stadium on Glenwood. But also we have a plant diagnostic clinic, and I don't know how many of you know about this. You can actually send us an email, or I think we're going to start opening office hours, which means you can bring something in and say, what is this? How do I kill it? Or should I keep it? And it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to find out more about what's growing in your yard, how to manage it. We'll tell you all kinds of things you can do. You can request a soil test kit, all kinds of things. So that information is actually on the flyer that was given to you. It's got the contact information, the website, the email, and I encourage you to use this. It is a heck of a good reference material for you as far as what will grow here. And hey, I knew this was going to grow here because it grew last year. Why isn't it growing this year? In the past, we've had crazy issues, like, 1 year, all the, it was like 40% of cherry trees died. And last year, I experienced this myself. The leaves didn't fall from my maple tree. So it's like every year something new happens. You can find out, is this a bad year for peach blight, which is terrible, and it really affects our lovely peaches here. Also for apples, finding out if we've got codling moths out and about, and what to do about it. So I encourage you to get involved with gardening. If it is a small herb garden, fantastic. You're getting started. You'll be bitten by the bug. It is amazing and wonderful, and you are actually providing nutrition for yourself, because once you start with herbs, you'll move on to vegetables. And I keep saying I just want more people to love eggplant, because I love eggplant, and there's so few people that do.
Sandy, so many people have complimented your presentation
Oh,
today. I just
fantastic.
want to tell you, you've received kudos from so many of the participants, and we want to thank you for volunteering your time to do this amazing class and inspiring us now that the weather is
Good.
to go and dig around in the soil. And
Right.
one last comment from Gypsy
Yes.
is that she put her parsley plants inside over the winter, and her kitty enjoyed it.
Yes.
Her cat
Yes.
enjoyed eating it.
Kitties will enjoy most things like that. Also, if you have kitties, don't grow lilies.
Ah, yeah.
They are deadly to kitties, and kitties are attracted to them.
Oh my goodness. My goodness.
So don't grow lilies.
Yes. Good.
So I'm glad you all came to this class. If you have any other suggestions for gardening classes in the future, please let the NKA staff know. They're some of my favorite people. So I'd be happy to do more classes for y'all if you're interested. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandy, for the wonderful presentation, and happy gardening to everyone. We're going to close the session now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Sandy.
Thank you.